Hi, this is Catholic Cat. My original plan for today was to hide at home. I've had a very difficult month. I've actually had a very difficult year. But this day in particular is hard for me. And I was going to hide at home, and then I realized that 9/11 is a big part of my reversion story, even though it happened a very long time ago. So I'm gonna just throw everything out there. I know I come off as harsh sometimes. I know I come off as judgmental sometimes. The people who really know me know that that's not true. I'm just very passionate, and I don't know how to express myself on Twitter, and I say things sometimes I shouldn't say. I think we all do. This is just a lot more natural for me, talking to people instead of trying to get all my thoughts into a tweet. And I hate those endless tweets that go on when someone's trying to express a really long thought, I can't stand them, and I refuse to do them. So this is just a lot more natural for me. I left the church when I was 8. I never made a conscious decision to leave the church. That was kind of made for me. My parents divorced, they separated, then they divorced, and my religious education stopped when I was about 8, and I was never brought to church as a child. I mean, I did occasionally wander into a church, and I would sit down, and I knew God was there. Even as a young child, 9, 10 years old, I knew He was there. But you're a kid and you have no guidance, and I got sucked into the world, and I got sucked in hardcore. For decades I lived, even though I believed in God, I lived like there was no God. I got married very young, 19. I had no business marrying this gentleman. I wanted a family. I hadn't had one for a very long time. So I married him. And it was very clear from the beginning that it wasn't going to work. But I did not get married to get divorced. He was abusive, mentally, physically. And there came a point where I came to the decision that I was going to try everything I could to keep my marriage together. And that included converting to Islam. But I wasn't going to convert if there was no truth in it. So I began to study. I studied for months. I read every book. I read the Quran. I tried the prayers. I did everything. And all I wanted was truth. I was willing to put aside everything I had ever believed, even as a small child. I was willing to put aside everything that I knew and just beg God for truth. Because if that truth was in Islam, I could save my marriage. And I did it. I read it. I would go into my room every night and study. And months into it, and this is what made me realize it was never going to happen. It could not happen. Months into it, I mean, at least 9 or 10 months into it, I had the Quran open on my bed, and I was reading it, and I was looking for truth. And I heard a voice. And it was a real voice. It was the only time I've ever heard a voice in my life. And it said, Catherine. These were the exact words I heard. It was one sentence and one sentence only. It's, Catherine, why are you studying Islam when you know your heart is Christian? I closed the Quran. And I never, ever opened it up again looking for truth. Never. A couple weeks later, I was down in the park. If you know anything about Brooklyn, there's a park on 79th Street in Shore Road that overlooked downtown Manhattan, the tip of Manhattan. And you could very clearly see the World Trade Center. This was the end of August. You could very clearly see it, and it wasn't in the distance. You could see clearly in front of you both towers of the World Trade Center. My kids were playing around me. It was the middle of the day. It was clear. It was a beautiful day. End of August. End of August up in New York, if you know anything about it. The leaves were already falling. You could hear the fall sounds of the insects in the trees. And I looked up, and above the towers, I saw an evil face. It was the most evil face I've ever seen in my life. And it was clear as day. I didn't have to squint my eyes. I didn't have to turn my head. I saw what I interpreted at that time, and I still interpret it, as the face of Satan over the World Trade Center. And I went home, and 2 weeks later, the towers were gone. It's as if he told me I was his. I couldn't be Muslim. And then he showed me why. It was a very difficult time. I knew I couldn't be Muslim, so I knew my marriage was over. I was preparing for that. I had children to take care of. And he told me I was Christian. Now, you need to understand something. I knew that was the voice of Jesus. I knew he came for me. This is why I get so upset when people say he's not real, or I actually get a kick out of it when they call him Sky Daddy. When they call God my Sky Daddy, I say, yeah, he is my Sky Daddy. He's up there, and he's my daddy, and I love him. But when he tells you you're Christian in this world today, you have no idea how to respond to that. I closed the Quran, and there's so many denominations out there. There are denominations for everything. At first, when my marriage ended, I started church hopping, trying to find some place where I belonged. I knew I wasn't going to go back to the Catholic Church. That I knew. I didn't even try. I never even went in. But every other denomination, it was ridiculous. It was scary, a lot of it. And then I just stopped. I had so much on my plate. I was dealing with kids. I was dealing with a divorce, visitations that were supervised. He wasn't allowed to see the kids alone. My job, I was working 50, 60 hours a week in a real estate office. And so I just gave up. Eventually, fast forward a whole lot of years, 2012, I moved down here. And for the first few years, I tried to take college classes. I couldn't pass a math class if you paid me. I can't do college math. And what happened was, in 2016, I just decided it was time to go back. I had to find my place. I had to find my church. I had to find where I belonged. So I did what every other Protestant did. I found a denomination finder. If you go online, there's actual things called denomination finders, and they're hysterical because you put in what you believe and they tell you what church you belong to. You know, the God made in my image and likeness, everything, what Jesus do I want? I'm going to go seek him out. So I did that, and I was sitting at the computer. And again, Catholic was not an option. You need to understand that the world doesn't look favorably upon the Catholic Church for a lot of reasons. And some of them, unfortunately, are well-founded. There's a lot of issues. But I put in what I believed. And there were a few questions that I deliberately avoided certain answers because I knew they were the Catholic answers. And I wasn't going to be a Catholic. That just wasn't going to happen. So at the end, I put in all my answers, and they told me that I belonged in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. And I started going there. But I was very upset about it, because even with me avoiding certain answers, even though I wanted to put them in, I looked down, and like third or fourth on the list was the Catholic Church. And that was a little spooky to me, because I was not going to be a Catholic. I was not going to pray to Mary. I was not going to revere saints. I wasn't going to do any of that, because that just wasn't Christian. And I started attending First English Lutheran Church on Cleary Avenue in Metairie. It was the middle of Lent when I started going there. And I felt at home there. I felt comfortable there. And I went there an entire year until the next Lent 2017. And something happened to me in 2017. It wasn't enough to go to church on Sunday. I had this thirst to get closer to God. I needed to get closer to Him. And my church was only open on Sunday, and I didn't understand that. It was Lent. I knew what Lent was. It was Lent. Why couldn't I go to church on another day? So I started seeking out other churches. Of course, they had the Missouri Synod, because that's what I was. I was a Lutheran, yada, yada, yada. And I found one on the other side of the I-10. And I started going there on Wednesdays. So now it was Lent, and I was going on Sundays and Wednesdays, and it still wasn't enough. It still wasn't enough. I wanted to go more, but that was it. There was no more. And I remember it was Easter Sunday, and I walked out of church services at First English, and I was like, it's over. Lent is over. I can just go back to the way it was before. Now you need to know something that I used to mock. Down the block from First English Lutheran Church was St. Clement of Rome. And it was a Catholic church. And it was directly down the block, and I had to pass it. The person who dropped me off at the Lutheran church on Sunday drove past it every Sunday, and I used to mock it in my head. Oh, those Catholics, they should come up the block. They really should. They should come up the block. And I felt so sorry for them. I thought they were idiots. I thought they were stupid. How could they believe that stuff? And then it was the first Sunday after Easter Sunday. Now you need to understand something. I left the church long before Divine Mercy Sunday was even a thing. I had no idea it was Divine Mercy Sunday. And I went to church Sunday after Easter, and then I walked down the block and walked into St. Clement of Rome. If you would have asked me a couple of weeks before would I do that, I would have laughed in your face. I don't know why I went in there, and I certainly don't know why. Well, now I know why, but back then I didn't know why. I walked in there, and I sat down, and it was the oddest looking church I've ever seen in my life. It was just odd. Whoever designed it needs to say sorry. That, suburban brick boxes. This wasn't a suburban brick box. This was a suburban brick circle. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. Weirdest. And I sat down. And I knew I was home. And I can't explain to you what happened, except that I was gifted. My faith came back. I knew I was Catholic. I believed everything the Catholic Church taught. I mean, I had just sat down. I wasn't even paying attention to anything that was going on around me. I knew I was home. And I knew I had been in denial. And I knew I was lying to myself. I don't know what brought me in that day. But I knew it was, I didn't at that point know it was Divine Mercy Sunday. But I knew I walked in a Lutheran and I walked out a Catholic. And I went home and I found this chaplet and I started praying it every single day. I loved this chaplet. It was so beautiful. It brought me such peace. I still had no idea what Divine Mercy Sunday was. I didn't know for a few more weeks. The following Saturday, I went to confession. Totally messed it up. I did my best. I was a child when I left the church. And I hadn't spoken to anyone, so I gave it the old college try, you know. Came back to haunt me later. I had to do a general confession because I kept remembering sins. But that's neither here nor there. I did my best. And that's who I am. That's why I know that I can never leave the church. Faith is believing in the things that you can't see. So I'm begging everybody, no matter what you see going on in the Catholic Church, that you stay. Because that's what faith is. Sometimes things that are the most beautiful and the most tempting are the worst things for us. So I'm asking you to stay. And I don't know why I just put that part in, except that I know what's out there. I know what's out in those other churches. I know what's out in the world, and it's no good for you. You stay in the Catholic Church. No matter how beautiful things look elsewhere. Lucifer was beautiful. He probably still is. Just because something's beautiful doesn't mean it's good for you. It doesn't mean it's right for you. It doesn't mean it's healthy for you. When Mary and John and the women were at the foot of the cross, Jesus was ugly. He was physically beaten. He was bleeding. He had gaping wounds. And they stayed when everyone else ran. Sometimes reality is awful. Sometimes the church doesn't look like the church is supposed to look. But it's the only church that Jesus founded. So I'm asking you to stay no matter what. And I don't know why I threw that in. Again, except because I know what's out there, and I know there's a lot of talk of people leaving for more beautiful liturgies, and they're afraid of what Pope Francis is. Don't be afraid of Pope Francis. Pope Francis can only do what God allows him to do. And I'm not the judge of God. I can't decide why things are happening. I can't judge why things are happening. I can only have my faith. I was gifted it back, and I'm not throwing it back in his face. I sat down in that church, and it poured out on me like something I can't explain. And I know what happened on Divine Mercy Sunday because of the life I lived. Because I know how many mortal sins I've committed. I can't even remember all of them. I lived such a horrible life. And I knew that he knew, because he knew me. He came for me. He came for me. I knew that he knew me enough to know that I would need to fall back on Divine Mercy because of the life I led, and because I knew I would never remember all my sins. That was my comfort. And sometimes when I feel completely lost, I close my eyes and I just picture him on the cross, and I picture the blood and water. I actually close my eyes and I bathe in it. I bathe in it. And that's what gets me through certain days. I've had a very difficult time. A lot of you who have been following me know this. It seems as though every time something clears up in my life or even just gets a little bit better, something else smacks me in the face. And it's still happening now. And I just wanted to let you know who I am. So if I come off as being harsh, it's because Twitter frustrates me so much, because I can't express myself. If my eyes are moving around, it's only because this is a little strange for me. I've never made a video like this before. This is who I am. This is my testimony from the age of 8 until now. And I just wanted you to know who I was and why I was, so that maybe you would understand me better. That's it. I'm gonna go now. I love you all. You all know I love you. I love you to pieces. You pray for me when I need prayers, and trust me, things have happened because you've prayed for me that I can't explain it other than to say that God hears prayers. And I've been helped, and I just love you all to pieces. So thank you. Bye-bye.